Welcome to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. I'm your host, Simone Morris, and I have a passion for empowering others to take responsibility for their careers. Yes, I've written several books on owning your career and am loving hosting this podcast. This podcast is for you if you're willing to make a shift to the driver's seat in your career. We feature leaders who inspire, empower, and motivate you for consistent career action for results. Please continue to join us every Sunday when a new episode is released. Let's get into this week's show. Hi there, this is Simone Morris, host of the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. You're in for a treat today as I'll be doing a solo episode, a real talk episode, and I always enjoy those episodes where I get to talk to the listeners one-on-one. There's been a lot going on in 2024. My goodness, it has felt like a very heavy year on my side. I'm telling you, I started the year in a place of grief with the loss of my mom, and then just some challenges as the year continued. A lot of highs, but also a lot of challenges. But I'm still standing and I'm still passionate and driven and still all about being in the driver's seat. So I want to talk to you about several things today on this Real Talk episode. Number one, what's new with me? Number two, I just did a speaking engagement up in Massachusetts, and I want to talk to you about being authentic at work. The topic is on my heart, so I thought I might give you, not might, I will give you some tips about being authentic at work. And then I also want to talk to you about what to do when results don't match your efforts. I do a lot of career coaching, and so I get to hear themes from my clients that I think on a broad scale would be impactful for you to hear from me about my perspectives on what to do when your results don't match your efforts. And then I'll talk about how to connect with me and wrap up the episode. So that's what I want to cover with you today. So let's start with what's new with me. Well, first of all, I am super duper excited because the audiobook, 52 Tips for Owning Your Career, has been completed and it is out in the world, swirling around. I'm anxious to see what it does, who it reaches, and who it helps. That I want to know as well. It's available on audible.com or wherever you listen to audiobooks. You should be able to get a copy of the book. You can also, go on Audible and search for my name, Simone E. Morris, and you should be able to find the book, or you could actually search for 52 Tips for Owning Your Career. But I am super proud of that product, the outcome, because it actually is a multi-year goal. It's something that a seed was planted in me many years ago at an author festival, and I was always curious about the effort, but I didn't do anything about it. And that happens sometimes to us with goals. We carry them with us, and when the time is right, then we activate and amplify our efforts to get results. So that happened this year, and I did it at the Westport Library. They have a recording studio, top notch, Westport, Connecticut, Verso Studio. Shout out to Travis Bell, who's an amazing engineer. And I did it there, and it was such a wonderful experience. I felt very protected, and it was a collaborative effort. And I must admit, some of my perfectionism got in the way because I listened to it and didn't like it. Sometimes it's funny to listen to your voice, to listen back to your voice, play back to you and say, I don't love that. So I was doing a lot of that, and Travis would say, sounds good to me, Simone. Are you sure you want to change it? So after a while, I just realized that I likely had some jitters about releasing something new into the world. And that happens to us when we do that. It could be a project that we're delivering, it could be a book that we're writing, or in this case, a audiobook that was being released. And so I am now working on a second audiobook because I enjoy the experience so much. I'm working on the audiobook for the children's book, Remember Me, Grammy P. So I have kept myself busy, and I am also fresh off of the Inclusive Leadership Impact Awards that my company runs every year. This is actually the second year. And it really was a passion project for me. I'm passionate about shining a bright light, just like the driver's seat. I'm passionate about shining a bright light on the driver's seat. I'm also passionate about shining a bright light on things that are going well when it comes to creating an inclusive workplace. Because quite frankly, if I hear one more story about somebody dropping out of DEI or DEI is labeled as divisive, ah, yeah, there's a lot of that going on. And you know what? Maybe in some instances that has happened, but I don't think wide scale DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion is meant to be seen as divisive. In fact, it's meant to do the opposite. It's meant to bring people together, harmonize, unity is what I think of. So anyway, the Inclusive Leadership Impact Awards allowed my company, Simone Morris Enterprises, to really celebrate people and community and students that are doing good work in this space. And it was a wonderful, wonderful event. But I tell you, there's a lot of work that goes into putting an event on successfully. We work on it for 6 to 9 months just to get it to a place where we feel really good about it. And it was a wonderful event, and we can't wait to do it again next year, October 2025. Excuse me. And so anyway, later on in the podcast, I want to talk to you about what to do when results don't match your efforts. And I say that because I realized from doing an event that it is a lot of hard work and a lot of efforts, and perhaps where my vision of in terms of results, it doesn't have to align or match up, but I always want it to match up with what my vision is and what the results are. And I have to be mindful that this is a journey, not a sprint. That's a comment that I've heard a lot. And I get evidence that it is true, that this is a journey. So the journey to career success is a journey, and each stop on the way and each experience on the way is data to allow you to fine tune and tweak your career strategy for continued success. So that's what's happening with me with this event thing, because I really, I've been doing this podcast. This is season 13. And I have this desire to get my audience together to talk about being in the driver's seat. I've done it many years ago before the pandemic, but I have a vision of doing it on a much larger scale because I am convinced there are many people who don't feel empowered to be in the driver's seat when it comes to their career. And again, I know this, I do quite a bit of coaching on an annual basis, and I'm having these type of conversations. I know this because I see comments on LinkedIn, and I hear from people about the impact of the podcast. And thank you for those who do reach out to me. By the way, if you want to reach out to me and drop me a line about the podcast, you can always send an email to POOYC, the short name for Power of Owning Your Career, at SimoneMorris.com. Again, that's POOYC at SimoneMorris.com. And you could always send that information in, or send a note, or tag us on social media, the hashtag POOYC and hashtag Simone Morris Enterprises, and we'll see your post and repost or give you a shout out on a future episode. We'd love to hear from more of our listeners for the podcast. So yeah, I have this vision to get us all together. And this podcast is listened to globally. So just imagine having a global conference talking about being in the driver's seat and hearing inspiring stories. This is a seed that I'm planting, everyone. So I'm dropping it here on the podcast. And don't be surprised if you see this seed nurtured and blooming at some point. So stay tuned for that. As I said, I recently came back from doing a speaking engagement about being authentic at work. And boy, it was a engaging, it was such a dynamic and engaging speaking engagement where the audience was so raw and vulnerable and nice and welcoming to me. I really enjoyed it, and it was in person. A lot of the stuff that I do now is virtual, so it's a real treat to get out of my office and to travel to a client location and do something in person. Actually, it was a hybrid event. It was in person. I was in person, and also we had people virtually joining in from another campus. And it was really, really nice to talk about authenticity because I know firsthand about authenticity or lack thereof because I spent a lot of time. I may have mentioned this in previous episodes that I have a background in corporate America, and I spent over a decade, almost 2 decades. Well, actually, I think it's 2 decades in corporate America. And I think for most of that time, it felt like I didn't have permission to be authentic. And I think sometimes what happened, not I think I know what happens sometimes is that we get lost behind that term professional and fitting in to the culture fit, and these different terms that make us feel like we can't show up in the workplace as our authentic selves. We can't show up in a performance conversation as our authentic self because it's going to impact, there's going to be some sort of repercussion about how we show up as our authentic self in the workplace. And I'm fascinated by the concept of bringing your full self to work because I do think that that provides a lot of benefits. It's a win-win scenario where you benefit from being authentic. Like it's exhausting to have to code switch or to show up and not be yourself. And like, all right, I got to be on for this 8 hours or 10 hours that I'm in the office. I got to be on a certain way so that I can move up in the organization. And then when I get out, I exhale and then I put on a different uniform or a different face and I am a different person. That's exhausting. And there's a impact on your well-being for doing that. So I think that it's a win-win. I know that it's a win-win for you to be allowed to give yourself permission to be authentic, but it takes a lot of courage to be vulnerable and to ask for what you want and to be really genuinely authentic in the workplace. I will say it comes with time and practice, with testing it out and safety, with being in an environment that is receptive to you doling out your authenticity in the workplace. So keep that in mind. And I think not I think, I know it's a win for the organization as well, because if employees feel safe in showing up authentically, they're going to generate even more ideas, contribute even more, and have more job satisfaction and be happy to be in the workplace. These are good benefits that we want to cultivate and foster. So being authentic at work is something I want you to think about. Driver seat nation. Yeah, I love that. I want you to think about that because you deserve to be your authentic self. You deserve to give into your creative expression without encountering um, mistreatment, discrimination, those things. And I want that for you. So I plan to talk about that a bit more because I know that that's an important topic, being authentic at work. And I believe that your authenticity can be a lever to help you accelerate in your career. There's only one you. And so, how do you embrace that one you, all dimensions of that one you? Think about that and how that can be a competitive advantage for you. If you're inside corporate walls and that's where you desire to be and stay, that's fine. So how do you leverage that authenticity lever to help you stand out and succeed? And if you desire to do your own thing and exit the corporate walls, same thing. I have to work on my authenticity. When I first went into business for myself, I would say I still, I had to scrub out that corporate education. I had to embrace relearning because I had learned a certain way of doing things and it was deeply embedded and ingrained in me. And so I really had to work at redesigning the leader that Simone wants to be, or redesign Simone's business. And authentically, my company, Simone Morris Enterprises, is named that way so that I can remember my leadership brand. I can remember, uh, the mission and vision behind it, and that's authenticity. I want authentic inclusion. I want authenticity to be a part of your formula for owning your career. So let's keep that in mind. The other thing that I wanted to talk to you about today is, what do you do when your results don't match your efforts? I was thinking about that when I was thinking about the events that I used to put on, and I thought I was doing a lot of hard work, and apparently not enough, because I now can compare it to the work that goes into putting on the Inclusive Leadership Impact Awards and the work that went into putting on some of the Power of Owning Your Career workshops. And I can see the difference in terms of efforts. But back then, when I put on those workshops, I had this vision that a massive amount of people were going to show up and be a part of those events, but I didn't put in enough effort. And so the effort can be exhausting. And it made me think about how you in your career, and me as well, when we put out effort and we want these results and we don't get it, what happens? How do we continue and not be deflated by the results that we're seeing? And I have a couple thoughts that I want to share with you, that I want to help you in terms of mindset, shifting your perspective, and setting you up for success as you move forward, as you think about the year that's ahead. I mean, believe it or not, we are wrapping up this year, and you should be thinking about, I sort of hate the word should, but anyway, it's prudent to be thinking about your 2025 goals already instead of waiting for 2025 to descend upon you. It's prudent to think about what you want for yourself in 2025. So let me just say this. There are a couple thoughts that I have around results and efforts being in alignment. When you're going after your dreams, whether you want a workplace promotion or you want to have new experience like a global role, or a new job, or even a new sponsor or mentor, a new team, any of that stuff. And you want to make sure that your, again, efforts and results are in alignment. So here are a couple thoughts that I have that I want you to think about. Number one is, I want you to believe in yourself, because sometimes your vision is your vision and other people can't see the vision. Only you can see that vision. And it's really important for you to, if that vision is on your heart, it's there for a reason and you want to embrace it. So I want you to believe in yourself, bet on yourself, and that is something that is going to help you stay the course. The more you believe in yourself and what you're trying to achieve, that's going to amplify and give you fuel to keep working at it till you're able to achieve that vision. So that's the first thing. And the other thing I want to say is, to, when the results aren't coming, I want you to keep going. I want you to keep going, because fear, if you don't have the right relationship with fear, it'll keep you stuck. You want to tell fear to take a hike, take a seat in the back seat. And you may have heard me say this before in the podcast. I love the book Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway by Susan Jeffers, the late Susan Jeffers. It's a terrific book, and I always tell my clients about it. And I'm telling you, the listeners, about it as well, because the relationship we have with fear can really cause us to be stuck or stalled in our careers, or actually not to act on your vision or your dreams. So really think about, what is your relationship with fear? Have a look at it, journal about it, write down, draw a picture about it. What is your relationship with fear, and how do you want to change it? Because we want to go from to. We want to be proactive, and we want to take action to set ourselves up for success. So I want to encourage you, as Susan Jeffers said, to feel the fear and do it anyway. And so when you're putting in efforts and you're not seeing the results, fear is going to tell you a story in your brain that this is never going to work, no one believes in you, or whatever the mental noise, chaotic thoughts are that keep you stuck or stalled. And what you want to do is to reframe those thoughts and to pour them out, pour them out. I love what Joel Osteen does in one of his sessions, or one of his um, sermons. He talks about dirty water in a cup, and if you pour water into the dirty water, clean water, that is, if you pour clean water into it, eventually the dirty water becomes clean. And I feel the same way about your brain and about these thoughts that keep you stuck, these fearful thoughts. So I want to encourage you to feel the fear and do it anyway. And the other thing that I think, not I think, you want to watch your language too, because I notice sometimes I can dip into the I think, but it's really I know. I know that asking for help is crucial to helping you be successful. And so sometimes when the results and the efforts aren't in alignment, and they're not matching up or giving you what you want, it's time for you to ask for help. And that help could be an investment, but it could be also finding a mentor to help guide you, so that you are able to have a different perspective around coming up with a solution to get you the result that you seek. So again, the thoughts that I have to help you set you up for success is to really change your relationship with fear, to unequivocally believe in yourself, and to ask for help, get some partners to set yourself up for success. So those were the thoughts on my heart today to share with you in this real talk. It is my hope that you are enjoying this 13th season. We've had some great guests on the show, and I want you to, if you haven't listened to it, go back and start. We started out the season with Jacqueline Twill. She had some great tips for us. Then we continued with Kirsten Graham and Karen Centeo, Jenny Mitchell, Anita Anello, Steve Griggs. So take the time to listen to season 13. And also, you know, season 13, there's 12 more seasons that you can listen to. So if you're feeling stuck or stalled in your career, go back to our archives and check out some of the other episodes. There's some great ones out there for you to give you tips on really being in the driver's seat for your career. We've got some other exciting episodes coming up, exciting and powerful episodes coming out. So stay tuned for those. And we'll run right down to the end of the year, or the season. The show will play until the end of the year. So we'll have episodes that run until December. And I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts on the show. If you'd like to, and I'm hoping that is a yes, unequivocal yes, you can listen to the podcast at pod.link/ownyourcareer. That gives you many, many choices about where to listen to the show. So I encourage you to continue to listen to the show. Reach out to me, send me a note. If there are guests that you would like to be on the show, please send me a note about that as well. And you can also apply to be a guest on the show. We are accepting guests at the moment for the show, so happy to consider applications that come in. And until the next time, I want to encourage you to continue to be in the driver's seat. And if you're not in the driver's seat yet, be graceful with yourself, set an intention to be in the driver's seat, and start to take small steps to make your way towards the driver's seat. This is Simone Morris, host of The Power of Owning Your Career, signing off. for this Real Talk. Until the next time, thanks so much for listening, and go out and get my audiobook on Audible or wherever you listen to these audiobooks, 52 Tips for Owning Your Career. And as always, you can go to careerbreakthrough.com and sign up to have a call with me, a coaching chemistry call, to see if I would be a good fit to support you in getting in the driver's seat or accelerating in your career. Thanks a lot for listening to today's Real Talk, and I look forward to future episodes, sharing and connecting with you as well. Thank you for being a loyal listener for the show. I sincerely hope that you enjoyed this week's empowering career story on the podcast. If you did, I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. Wherever you listen to the podcast, be sure that you are subscribing and that you rate and review the podcast. It's so important as we continue to spread the word of career empowerment. In addition, you can head over to the LinkedIn platform and join the Power of Owning Your Career discussion group. There you can have access to the guests who have been on the podcast, as well as others listening to the podcast, as well as myself, where we can continue the conversation. I hope to see you on that platform. You can also email me at pooyc@simonemorris.com if you have a suggestion for guest or a message that you want me to hear personally. Thanks so much, and make it an inspiring, empowering week in your career.